What is going on, guys? This is Daniel. So I've been studying the Raptors defense for a while, but with the NBA season being postponed and possibly cancelled, I wasn't sure I was going to make this video. But Toronto with Nick Nurse is doing some really interesting stuff, so this video only feels right. The Raptors have the second ranked defense by points per possession, and they play a very unique and aggressive style that we can learn from. So, let's get to it. One of their main defensive strengths is their ability to shrink the floor. Shrinking the floor is when the defense closes open gaps by helping off of perimeter players, and here we see a textbook example. The ball is on top, and one pass away, Siakam and Lowry are at the elbows, in a stance, arms out, taking away the driving gaps. On the pass, Lowry jumps back to his man, and their defensive shell is top-notch. Here, Powell shrinks the floor on a post-up. Instead of staying home on his man, he's active and looks to strip the ball loose. Now, part of what sets them apart is their ability to get in the gaps after some ball movement. So here the Suns move it, and when it's kicked back out, McCaw doesn't close out desperately off ball. He shows great awareness to stop at the foul line, prevent a potential downhill drive, and it results in a travel. So they're smart, and Nurse also wants them to be extremely aggressive in shutting down drives. They're not okay with a guard getting into the paint, so here VanVleet steps up to help, even with Ibaka waiting inside. And he can do this because their rotations are excellent. And here Terrence Davis nicely zones up the weak side, covering for VanVleet. At the NBA level, it's unusual how much they're willing to gap, and they'll be aggressive even from the strong side corner. Here VanVleet positions himself above the line, losing sight of man and ball, and he recovers just in time to prevent the backdoor layup here. Here Anunoby does the same thing. Even as Ingles goes to the corner, he maintains his elbow position, almost daring the pass to Ingles. And by the way, this has prepared them well for a potential series with Milwaukee, where it's a necessity to take away Giannis' driving lanes, then recover out to shooters. And because the on-ball defenders know they have help behind them, they can apply relentless ball pressure, which can take the offense out of their plan. As you can imagine, their instant help prevents offenses from getting many looks inside, and the Raptors allow opponents to shoot only 33% of their shots at the rim, which is the 7th lowest rate in the league. It's no secret many of the best defenses are effective at taking away shots at the rim. They also rank second in the league at forcing turnovers, and shrinking the floor intrudes the offense's space and forces mistakes. Now, there are costs to this, and what's so interesting about their style is that it allows a lot of threes, and they're 29th in the league at preventing three-point attempts. This is almost counterintuitive. Offenses hunt threes, and they're willing to give them up. Off-ball, they often treat even proven shooters as if they're liabilities, and it can look bad at times, and here they leave a 36% shooter, Marvin Williams, open for a corner three. But this extreme pack line style seems to be working, as they lock down the interior with their help and their size up front. Now, while Toronto allows a lot of threes, opponents shoot terribly on them. Not to flood you with stats, but on these three-point attempts, opponents shoot only 34.3%, lowest in the league. Part of the reason is that Toronto is smart about helping off of poor shooters, and here Siakam helps off of Thon Maker. But maybe the biggest factor is that they are very aggressive with leaping closeouts. Here's a good example. Lowry closes out to the shooter by jumping to contest the release, while also staying to the side so he won't foul. This is especially ideal with their long forwards such as Anunoby. Chris Boucher is a complete madman closing out, and here he gives two strong efforts to prevent clean looks. And with their length and closeout style, it's no surprise to see that Toronto leads the league with 43 blocked three-pointers. What you won't see them do is the traditional chop closeout, and here we see O'Neal do this. He chops his feet, which can prevent the drive, but it gives Siakam time to fire. Now, what I find fascinating is that off-ball they show no respect to mediocre and poor shooters, but when it's time to close out, they'll rush hard at them. Here, for instance, Siakam is barely even guarding Eric Pascal, who's shooting 29% from 3, but on the pass he closes out to him like he's Duncan Robinson and forces a travel. So while they give up a lot of threes, they fly out to leap and contest, and if they can get a below average shooter taking a contested three, they're winning the battle. And aggressively jumping to close out seems to be effective. Let me explain. Brad Stevens started coaching the Celtics in the 2013-14 season, and in his 7 seasons, the Celtics have finished no lower than 6th in opponent three-point percentage. Basically, teams have consistently shot poorly from 3 against Boston. And like Toronto, they emphasize leaping high to contest threes, though even they aren't as aggressive with their closeouts as the Raptors. Anyways, this balls-to-the-wall style of closing out and contesting threes is definitely working for these two good teams. Next, let's talk about where they bring the help and pick and rolls, because with their gap help, they do things differently than a lot of teams. The first type of pick and roll we'll talk about is the single side tag, and here's an example. Around the ball screen, the offense stations 2 players ball side and 1 player weak side. It's called the single side tag because now there's only 1 weak side defender to tag the roll man, which can be an almost impossible job for this defender to tag the roll man and stay close to his man. Here, when the tag doesn't fully come, it puts the drop big in a tough spot and they give up the lob. But the Raptors don't want their weak side defender vulnerable in a single side tag. They want to send help from the side with 2. So they drop and stop the ball handler from ever getting downhill by helping off of the ball side wing. This takes the ball out of Rose's hands and they scramble nicely. Also, on this play they executed a jump switch when Siakam was beat. Anunoby stops the ball 1 pass away and Siakam switches to the corner. This is a difficult on-the-fly switch, but the Raptors have it in their arsenal to protect the paint. Anyways, their help 1 pass away and single side tag pick and rolls work quite well, and it often doesn't force rotations. Compare those last 2 plays to this, where the defense doesn't help from the wing and Luka gets downhill. Indiana doesn't prioritize that help. Of course, NBA coaching staffs discuss pick and roll help all the time, so I'm glad we're covering it. And also, Toronto is a very smart, flexible team. Here for instance, OG would normally gap, but he stays home because he's guarding Booker, and to cover for him, now Lowry comes to help more in the pick and roll, and this is good stuff, adjusting to personnel. Moving on from the single side tag to an empty pick and roll, and this is where the weak side is empty and there are 3 ball side players, and you can bet your last dollar that Toronto will send a defender to the foul line, and here Van Vliet makes Rose pick up his dribble, and that's how you protect the paint. A clear priority for them is to limit the opposing team's star player, and shutting down their driving lanes is certainly a key factor. They did this against Rose all night, forcing other players to beat them. Let's cover the double side tag pick and roll. It's very common. There's 1 ball side player and 2 weak side players. Now with the weak side having 2, that's where they're bringing the help with 2 tags. This is called the weak side eye, which is much more effective than a single tag, and they dare the cross-court pass. Lastly, I wanted to highlight Siakam, who is basically their free safety, their Draymond on defense. He's able to help more than others due to his length and athleticism, and this allows him to be extremely effective and cavalier with his help. Here, for example, he stops the pick and roll with his gap help, and then we see the double side tag situation with 2 weak side shooters. The Raptors often like to form the weak side eye, and they force the skip pass. Well, there you have it guys. Now more than ever, I want to hear any video suggestions in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this video breaking down just a few aspects of the Raptors defense. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.